If you are a business owner in the process of being on your journey and figuring out how to do your business, this podcast, this live, this video is just for you. And my name is Terryl Humphrey. Over the last half a decade, I've been in business trying to understand everything that I'm doing. And what I recognize is that even though we are on different parts of the journey, we are on the same journey because every entrepreneur goes through the same process. I'm going to share my experience, the lessons I've learned, and my goal is to help you overcome the challenges that I've overcame. And so in this video, we're going to talk about my biggest challenge while being in business and how I overcame the challenges I'm currently facing. So again, my name is Terryl Humphrey. I'm the host of the Phase Knowledge Podcast. And at the Phase Knowledge Podcast, we speak about how to turn setbacks into success. Every successful entrepreneur that you come encounter with has had a lot of failures. They have had a lot of setbacks. They've had a lot of moments where they had to pivot, change direction, and update everything that they were doing. When you are in business, you have to be okay with changing. You have to be okay with adapting. You have to be okay with improving, because what happens many times in life is that you are learning more about yourself in the business that you're going to have. So make sure you got your pen, get your notebook out, because today we're talking about my biggest challenge when it comes to business. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is identifying the problem. Oh, you can't even see that. All right. So identifying the problem to solve. So this is the biggest challenge that I ever had to face, because learning what problems to solve is overwhelming because there are so many problems to solve. And so what I discovered over my last half a decade of being in business is that there are many problems to solve, but if I don't have the team, the money, or the understanding of how to solve the problem, I'm solving the wrong problem. And there's a book called Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution. And I'm in this mentorship program as well, and they talk a lot about the problem. And in my mind, I'm like, well, how do you come across the problem? How do you identify the problem? How do you know what problem that you're solving? And what I started to learn is that even though you're on your own journey, you have your own business, recognizing the problem will be the biggest challenge there is, because there's so many different problems. Think about this. When I started in business half a decade ago, I didn't even know it was called business. I didn't even know it was called a podcast. I didn't even know that I can inspire and impact so many people like I have been. What I did recognize is that I wanted to get my voice out there to help others become the best version of themselves. In order for me to do that, I had to go through a phase of life. My second episode of the Phase Knowledge Podcast says every successful entrepreneur has to go through a phase of life. And when you're going through this phase of life, you're learning about yourself, you're discovering yourself, and you're experiencing moments that will be life-changing moments for you. For instance, the life-changing moment for me is when I went through a divorce. The divorce not only taught me about myself, but it taught me that everyone has a problem. Everyone has a problem that needs to be solved, but it comes from the right person that can solve that problem. So the reason why this was my biggest challenge, because it's like, well, how do you know what problem to solve? A lot of people say you can be a coach. A lot of people say you can be a mentor. A lot of people say you can be in real estate. A lot of people say you can do various different things, but how does that help me identify the problem that I'm solving today? So what I learned over that last half a decade of going to school for business, being in business programs, and having mentors who are in business, they taught me the most important thing. If you're going to be in business, you have to understand the problem that you're solving. And I had a thought that came across my mind yesterday. I was like, all right, cool. I think I got it now, because I done changed and updated my business model so many different times. And when I changed it this time, the problem became simple. Because I focus on the feedback that I receive. Because I focus on feedback. feedback. And what this did is it helped me understand that I can't solve every problem, but if I'm getting the right feedback, if I'm getting the right feedback to help me identify the problem that I can be good at solving, it's like, well, what if I continue to solve this problem? Like, for instance, 2 years ago, I thought the problem that I was solving is helping leaders launch their podcast with confidence. And then when I go to different business programs, different mentorship programs, learning about business, that problem changed, because now when I start communicating with people and I start reaching out to people and I start to receive feedback, people start to say, I want to launch my podcast, but they never make time to launch their podcast. People are busy. People have a lot of things going on. I definitely understand that. So was it the problem of learning how to launch your podcast, knowing what to talk about, or the equipment to have? Or was it a problem that can be solved at a bigger, in a more simple way? And so what I learned during that time is that my biggest challenge still is identifying a problem, and how I'm going by identifying this problem is understanding the skills that I bring to the table. I'm not good at everything. However, I'm good at something, and that something is podcasting. I've been podcasting for a half a decade, and I have a system. I have a blueprint. I have a process. Yesterday I was on a mentorship call, and he said you have to sell your framework. And the framework that I was selling, I'm like, well, what is the framework? I don't even know the framework there is. The problem that you're solving comes from the framework that you have developed for yourself. Think about McDonald's. McDonald's solved the problem of being hungry. And when you go to a fast food restaurant, they sell you burger, fries, Coca-Cola. And when they do that, they're solving a problem of hunger. I don't know their mission statement. I can definitely look it up. However, they are selling the system. Yes, it's a burger, fry, and you get something to drink with it. In addition to that, there's a process that goes behind getting the right thing, the exact same time on a consistent basis. And so when I started to understand that McDonald's is actually a good business because they're solving a problem, they're solving a problem that can be repeated. And I was like, oh, that's probably it. You have to solve a problem that can be easily repeated to the point where you can grow your business, you can have more customers, and you can really make an impact. My biggest challenge is learning the problem to solve on a consistent basis rather than trying to recreate the wheel. There's a saying to say from Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. You do what's working until you figure out how to improve it. And so when I started to understand that everybody has a problem, yet I can't solve every problem there is, I have to understand the problem that I would like to solve. As a business owner, when you recognize the problem that you're solving, you communicate the solution to the problem more often, more frequent, and more consistent. What this does is that it positions you as the authority. Over the last half a decade, I'm learning how to understand the problem rather than focus on the solution, because the problem will help me develop the solution, will help me develop the framework, will help me develop the system. There's a process that goes within the journey, yet the journey comes from understanding the problem. My biggest challenge was understanding the problem that I solve, so that way I can solve the same problem over and over and over again. What this does is that it helps me focus on something. It helps me focus on a thing. It helps me focus on solving one particular problem than solving so many problems, because I'm only one person. I'm on a small team right now. For now, on the contrary, if I focus on the problem that I'm focused on solving, then eventually I'll be able to solve it. So I had to pivot my business model, because at first it was helping leaders launch their podcast with confidence. Now it is helping executives who has a podcast stay consistent about editing, publishing, and promoting their podcast. And now what I'm going to do, since I have this problem figured out, the problem is the lack of consistency through their podcast. It's not the fact that they haven't launched a podcast. It's more so that they've launched a podcast, yet they have a lot of things going on. So the podcast becomes the back seat. The podcast is not the focus. The podcast is the thing. This the last thought that's thought about. And so now what I have to do, since I discovered this new problem, is that I have to go out and speak to people. I have to go out and speak to customers. Go out and speak to potential customers. Because if I understand the problem that I'm solving, and people have the problem that I'm looking to solve, I will be able to have a business. Just like you, I'm in the process of figuring out the business that I have, but that doesn't mean that the figuring it out does not stop. What happens is that I become more clear, you become more clear, and you understand the problem that you are solving. It's going to be challenging. And the reason why this is my biggest challenge is because I have to really change and pivot and improve everything that I'm doing based off the information that I received a while ago. So the first point that we just went over, my biggest challenge so far was identifying the problem to solve. The next point, this one is critical. The next point is finding the solution to the problem. Finding the solution. And in this example, this one is so important because first it comes with the problem and then it comes with the solution. So what I'm learning is that the solution is the framework that I have to position to help others with the problem that I can solve. The problem has to be the focus first, because if I communicate the problem accordingly, people start to say, I have this issue, I would like this problem solved. If I don't do that, I can't solve a problem consistently. So as I'm communicating with customers, as I'm getting feedback and I'm putting myself out there, what I'm figuring out is the language to use, it's the challenges that they're facing, it's the problems they're facing when it comes to having their podcast consistently show up. This not only is helping me have more focus, but it's helping me identify the problem more clear. So when the problem is clear, now the solution comes behind the problem. How do you identify the solution? Well, you identify the problem and you learn about the problem. You study about the problem. I remember watching the interview with Bob Johnson. He was the founder of BET. And he said a lot of entrepreneurs who goes into business do not do research. And he gave a story behind how he did research on his business. He called local shops and he said, hey, we thinking about starting this media company, and would y'all watch it? And then that was like, yeah. He was like, that was my research. He went out to the market and received feedback to say, this is the problem that we have. In addition to that, there's another advertising agent. He was in the magazine space, and his name is John Johnson. And he proceeded to say, when you are putting yourself out there, you're putting yourself out there to solve a problem. The solution from the problem comes from you understanding the problem that you're solving. An example that Bob Johnson used with John Johnson is that John Johnson went to the grocery store, went to Walgreens. And when he went to Walgreens, he asked, was his magazine in store? It was like, no, it's not in the store. So what he did is that he went to local businesses, people, family and friends, and he said, go into Walgreens and buy everything that you need. Everything for soap, everything for your house, everything for yourself, and so on and so forth. When you get to the counter, ask them if they have the Ebony magazine. And the Ebony magazine back in the day with John Johnson, it was a black magazine that held black entertainers in the magazine. And at the counter, they proceeded to say that they didn't have it. And what John Johnson suggested them do is to put all the products back. Like, since y'all don't have this, we're not going to get this. That is a form of research. What problem was it solving? The problem that John Johnson was solving in his advertising company was that he was solving the representation problem. There was a lack of representation. There was a lack of black successful people being presented accordingly. And he understood, in order for me to solve this problem, I have to understand the solution. The solution was thinking outside of the box. The solution came from him talking to family and friends. The solution came from feedback. Feedback helps you develop your solution, because your solution comes from what people are saying, people concerns, people problems. What this does, what this is doing for you is that it is giving you, customer feedback. And in my instance, I did a discovery call yesterday. And in this discovery call, I informed the person of how the podcast was going to go, what to expect from the podcast, and a little bit of background history of Phase Knowledge podcast. And when I proceeded to explain how the process is going to go, what to expect, what to look out for, I asked, do you have any questions? I'm opening up the door for feedback. And the response I received was like, man, like, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to this. A lot of times people are not used to the solution yet you have to understand the problem that you're solving. So when I go into other people podcasts, yes, the interviews are great. They're phenomenal. Nonetheless, you only get the interview. Like, you only go into other people's platform and you talk and you communicate, you share stories, yet that's it. On the contrary, it's only beneficial to the host. Excuse me. So then I'm like, okay, what if I operate my podcast as a business? So when I go to McDonald's and I order a McDouble with fries and honey mustard, I ordered this because it's something I already want. It's something I already know I want. They took the time to put it together, to have a process system together as a business. I go in, order the food, wait for the food to come, and then food gets delivered. That is a business. That is a form of a system. That is a process. When someone comes onto the podcast, when someone comes onto the Phase Knowledge podcast, they're not just getting an interview. They're getting a place to share their story. They're getting a podcast trailer. In addition to that, they're actually getting a link to the full episode. Why does that matter? That matters because if I want to solve a problem with helping executives who has a podcast stay consistent by editing, publishing, and promoting their podcast, I have to communicate the language in the language where my customers will understand the problem that I solve. If I'm speaking directly to my customers, I have to use the language that they're using to solve their problem. Well, what do you get the language to solve their problem? That language comes from customer feedback. That language comes from customer feedback. And in the customer feedback, you're not only understanding or you're not only just learning what they are. Hold on, where'd it go? Hold on. Oh, hold on. There we go. You're not only learning what they say. Hold on. You're learning how they say the problem, how they describe the problem, how they describe the problem. Why is that important? That is what I discovered over a half a decade and really just within the last year or so, is that if I want to solve a problem, I have to go directly to the customer that I'm looking to serve. My biggest challenge was going to a similar customer my biggest challenge was going to a similar customer but didn't use the language of my ideal customer. Very confusing. In other words, let's just say I go to someone who doesn't have a podcast, and when I try to go to them and help them be more consistent with their podcast, well, number one, I'm already at the wrong customer. I'm already speaking about the wrong thing. They don't have a podcast. So why would I need to speak about a podcast if they don't have a podcast? So rather than me trying to convince them to start a podcast, this was my other biggest challenge as well, is identifying that do they even qualify for the questions? Do they even qualify for the service that I provide? Do they even have the problem that I'm looking to serve? What this did is that it helped me understand business. Your customer language is the language that you should be using in order to sell your product, in order to solve the problem, in order to really have customers. And I'm getting to the point where I'm about to start working with customers. In addition to that, I'm learning how to get feedback. I'm getting feedback. I'm applying the feedback. I'm making changes. I'm making updates. I literally have changed my business model so many different times. Yet at the same time, I'm constantly learning more about the problem to solve on a consistent basis. It's not just about launching your podcast. It's not just about help your podcast remain consistent. It's more than anything. It's removing stress and overwhelmness from your life. And in addition to that, we're saving you time because right after you produce your podcast episode, now the real work comes. Now you have to edit, you have to publish, and you have to promote your podcast. That is a lot of work. When I recognized this, in fact, yesterday, I recognized the importance of removing the stress and overwhelmness from executives' lives. I was like, I need to speak to more executives. And newsflash, I've been in communication with a lot of executives, but I didn't understand the problem that I was solving. When you are in business and you understand the problem that you're solving, you have to go directly to your customers and learn the language that they are using, because that will help you understand the customer feedback and the feedback that they're looking for, because they will explain the problem at hand. My biggest challenge was understanding the problem that they was explaining. And so what this did for me is that it helped me, like, okay, through mentorship conversations, through business programs, through school, like different ways of learning is really helping me position the problem differently. In the book, Focus on the Problem, Not the Solution, it explains the importance of learning the problem, studying the problem, researching the problem, and identifying if enough people have this problem that you can solve. And so what I'm doing is that I'm going out to speak to customers, and as I'm speaking to customers, I'm getting feedback. What are they saying? How are they saying it? How much stress is it causing? And now I'm just understanding there's another terminology called customer persona. And I'm learning how to identify the customer persona. Shout out to Action Zone, because they say if you're looking to serve everyone, you're serving no one. And I'm like, well, when I started back in business, I'm like, well, everyone need social media. Everyone needs to be on social media. But in business, if you're looking to serve everyone, how are you serving somebody? How are you serving someone? And so that was another biggest challenge, like understanding like there's a process to go through. As I'm growing through the process, I'm becoming a better person, a better business owner, and a better problem solver. The person who solves the better problem is the company that focuses more on their customers. And so so far we went over the first biggest challenge so far was identifying a problem to solve. That's the biggest challenge number one. The second thing that we went over is just how to find a solution. And the third thing that we're gonna go over, is that you have to take action with patience. Take action while being patient. And I emphasize the patient part because, you can't even see it. Hold on. You can't even see it. I emphasize the patient part because the patient part is the most overwhelming part, because how do you know you're doing something right when you constantly have to change, you constantly have to pivot, you constantly have to update your business model? What this is doing is that it's helping you become a better business owner. And when I learned how to take action based off me putting proper, webinars, presentation, speaking engagements, social media, when I put the proper tools in place and I speak about the problem and I'm getting feedback, how do I apply the data or the feedback that I'm receiving? Well, this is something that I'm learning, because now I have to learn how to read the data. I have to learn how to read the feedback. I have to learn how to apply the feedback. Why does this matter? It matters because if I'm focusing on the problem, challenges will come. Challenges will naturally arise. Nonetheless, as they are coming, I'm learning how to handle the problems as they come. Reason being is because in business, there are going to be a lot of changes. There's a book called The E-Myth Revisit, and he explains that there are three positions in business. And there are, one is a technician. This is know-how. Number two is the manager. This is system developer. And number three is the entrepreneur. And this is the business owner. This is the business owner. Okay. And mind you, I done read this book. I done listened to this book like a lot of times. I done listened to the E-Myth Revisit maybe more than 5 times. I don't have an exact amount of number that I've listened to the book. Nonetheless, as I'm listening to the book, it gives me insight. It gives me a better understanding, and it helps me understand that if I want to be in business, first I have to learn how to do a business, like learn what business I'm in, or learn what problem I'm in. In addition to that, the second point is the manager role is learn how to manage the skills that I've already developed. And then the position number 3 is how to be the business owner to manage the manager who's managing the system. And in simplest way, to break that down even more, you can know, I did a podcast a couple months ago, and he said a lot of people don't know how to be business owners. A lot of people just are good at the creative side. A lot of people are good at knowing how to do it. Instead of knowing how to do it, in addition to running the business behind how to do it. I was one of them. In fact, I'm still one of them, but I'm becoming better of a manager, of a business owner, just so I can learn, like the proper things to put in place. I share that with you because we're on the same journey. You never figure out entrepreneurship. I'm listening to this book, Do, Be, Repeat. I think that's the name. And in the book, they explain that you have to understand that you are constantly going to change, you're constantly going to evolve, and you have to be okay with that. Business is ever changing, and you can't not perfect it. Just like they use an example with what was it? What is it? Ballerina? No, I don't think it was ballerina, but they use some example. When you never perfect it, you just get better. And when they explained that, I was like, you never perfect it, you just get better. What are you getting better at? You're getting better at becoming a business owner. You're getting better at solving the problem. You're getting better at identifying the customer feedback or the customer language. Excuse me. And what this is doing for me is that it's helping me identify the roles that I'm playing. I can't solve every problem. Yet if I solve the same problem consistently, I had a mentorship call a couple of days ago, and they explained that he focused on a specific customer and solved a specific problem. I'm like, how did you do that? Like, did you change your offer? Did you change your prices? Did you change the customer? Like, how did you go about identifying a specific customer to solve this specific problem? He said, I focused on one particular problem that I was solving, and the same customer who had the problem had the same problem in different states and different countries. I was literally blown away. The biggest challenge in business is identifying a problem, the solution, and taking action while you're being patient. The reason why is because you're not going to get the answers as soon as you start your business. You're not going to get your answers as soon as you go out to the marketplace. You're not going to get your answers as soon as you go speak to customers. What happens is that you start to get a lot of feedback, and this feedback is stacking, and this feedback is growing, and this feedback is improving. In addition to that, you are growing, you are improving, you are becoming better. What this is doing for you is that it's helping you become a better business owner. In business, you have to learn the business that you are in by applying the knowledge that you have learned. In addition to that, you have to really understand how to do business. The reason why that's the biggest challenge is because patience is the virtue of life. In other words, patience is overwhelming because I want it now. There's a commercial says, my money, I want it now. It's your success, but your success is not going to come as soon as you want it. Your success is going to come the more you be patient, the more you show up, the more you do the work. The work is what matters. The work is what's the focus. The work is what takes time. Why? Because as you are focusing on the problem, you have to be okay with changing. You have to be okay with adapting. You have to be okay with pivoting, because it's not going to go how you think it's going to go. In business, it's going to go the way it needs to go based off your research, based off your feedback, based off you taking action. You just can't sit behind your computer and just study, research, and look up information. There's a terminology when I was doing real estate wholesaling. There's a terminology called paralysis analysis. In other words, you get stuck in the studying, get stuck in the know-how, get stuck in like the learning phase, and you never go out to go start making cold calls. You never go out to start door knocking. You never go out to go speak to customers. How this helped me in business is that I started to really put myself out there for customers. When I started running Facebook ads, I start spending money on advertisements, so that way people can start coming in and see if the offer is good, or if it's working, or if I need to change, if I need to improve. How this helped me is that 1, I was taking action. 2, I was receiving feedback. 3, I learned how to be patient and read the data. I'm still learning how to read the data. Yeah, I'm a lot better today because I started a half a decade, or I started like actually doing business two years ago. And that's helping me identify the problem to solve. You have to take action in order for you to receive results. The results is not going to come out the air. I just can't step outside of the door and say, I want to be a successful business owner. I want to have a successful podcast. No, you got to do the work. There's a video with Kevin Hart. He said, you got to do the work. You have to put yourself out there even more and do the work. The work is not gonna magically get done or get completed. What it's going to do is that it's going to force you to do the work. And when you are forced to do the work, you start to really grow as a business owner. Over the last half decade, I've been growing as a business owner because I've been learning how to do the work, how to read the data, how to apply the data, learning how to apply the data, and to do it consistently. This right here, the Failures on the Podcast, is doing the work. Because what I started to recognize is that when people are reaching out to get onto the podcast, I ask them, how are y'all finding me? Some say pod pitch, some say Google, some say word of mouth, some say different places. But if I don't do the work to put myself out there, the work won't be done because people won't be able to find me. And that's when I understood that this is business is like I learned this last week. They said the infinite loop. Infinite. One of my mentors that was like, it's a infinite loop. Infinite. I don't know if I spelled that right. Infinity loop. Anywho, what that means, hold on. What that means and what it describes is that business is always changing. You are always changing. You are always growing. You are always evolving. That's important because I took a personality test. Let's just say I took one in 2025. Then I took another one. No, let's say 2024. I took a personality test in 2024. I took the same personality test in 2025. My results was different. I was not expecting my results to be different. What is that? How did that help me? The infinity loop. Your business is always changing because you are the one that's changing. You are the one that's growing. You are the one that's developing. When you focus on the problem, you identify the solution that can solve this problem, yet you have to take action and be patient with everything that you're doing because everything's going to teach you how to be a better business owner. So in closing, let's just go over everything that we talked about today. So my biggest challenge in business was number 1, identifying a problem to solve. I'm still updating the problem to solve, and today it might change. Let's just hope it don't change. But let's just say today we help executives stay consistent through podcasting by editing, publishing, and promoting their podcast. And let's just see how long I continue to stay there. The next thing that we talked about is finding the solution. When you are in business, there's a problem to solve, not problems. There's a problem to solve, and when you solve the problem, you are understanding the language, the customer feedback, and how to actually apply the information, because you're focused on a problem instead of problems. Because the more problems you solve, the less customers you have. So, and the last thing that we talk about is that you have to take action while being patient. Action is what's going to help you grow even more, because action comes from you understanding what you are doing, what problem you solve, and the solution behind the problem. Why is this important? This is important because you learn how to be patient. You change with the time instead of let the time change with you. And just like you, I'm an entrepreneur figuring out. And so I want to come on here and express the lessons that I've learned, so that way you can know that you're doing the right thing. In addition to that, as you are identifying the right path that you're on, just know that you are not alone. Just know there are other entrepreneurs, other business owners who experience the same exact problems that you are dealing with, but you just have to know that you are on your same path, but you're not alone. So I'm your host, Terrell Humphrey. And then lastly, I want to say this. Just know you're one failure away from changing your life. So never be afraid to fail, because failure is knowledge. I appreciate y'all. Then I'll see y'all in the following video.